I want you to do something for me right now. Look around the room you're sitting in.
Okay.
Look at the wall, look at the desk, maybe, look at the window frame.
It's a familiar view for most of us, a very static one.
Right. And it all looks, well, it looks dead. It's just matter. It's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We walk through this world thinking of it as a stage set. The props are inanimate, and we, the humans, are the only actors walking around with a script, with a mind.
That is the default setting of the modern brain, I think.
Hmm.
We see a really sharp divide between living and non-living, between the who and the what.
Exactly. We assume consciousness, this feeling of being me, of having a voice inside my head, is this rare freak accident that only happens inside our skulls because of some complex wiring.
A lucky evolutionary fluke.
Oh, and this is a massive but that we are going to wrestle with today.
Mm-hmm.
What if we had the map upside down?
It's a terrifying and exhilarating question to even ask.
What if that wall, that desk, that beam of light coming through the window, what if it's all thinking?
Okay, now you're going to have to define thinking.
I mean, in a fundamental physics-based way, not in a fantasy novel, the hills are alive kind of way. What if mind isn't the result of the universe, but the building block of it?
You are plunging us right into the deep end today. This is the hard problem of consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you get subjective feeling, the experience of the color red out of cold, dead meat?
Precisely. And usually when we do a deep dive, we're looking at a sleek PDF from a university or maybe a new study from Nature or Science. But today
Is very different.
very different. We aren't looking at a published journal. We're looking at a scan of a handwritten manuscript. It's titled General Philosophy, or in Arabic, Al-Falsafa al-Amma.
And the author is a man named Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily.
And I have to say, looking at these pages, it feels intense.
It does. I was struck by the visual nature of it. You can almost feel the pen pressure on the paper through the scan.
There are scribbles, things crossed out, heavy underlines where he's trying to emphasize a point. It doesn't look like a textbook. It feels like a man who locked himself in a room because he solved the riddle of the universe and had to get it down on paper before he forgot it.
It has this frantic, brilliant energy to it. That's a good way to put it.
And the scope is just audacious.
Completely. Al-Waily isn't staying in his lane. In modern academia, you're a biologist or a physicist or a psychologist. You don't cross the streams.
But Al-Waily ignores the do not enter signs completely. He wants a unified theory. He's trying to bridge the gap between the hard, cold physics of the atom and the warm, messy reality of the human soul.
And his solution is, well, it's radical, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
He proposes that we can locate the soul not in some spiritual dimension, but right there in the periodic table, or rather, underneath it.
It's such a bold move. He's arguing that matter is feeling all the way down.
All the way to the bottom.
So we have a huge roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to start where he starts with emotions and why we feel them. That's part one.
Redefining them as survival mechanics.
Exactly. Then we'll look at the 4 faculties that he says every living thing, even a bacteria, must possess.
The toolkit for life.
And then, oh man, then we get to the explosive central theory, the principal photon.
The atomic society. That is the absolute core of his theory.
I can't wait to unpack that. But let's start at the beginning, at the top. The manuscript opens with a discussion on emotion, specifically the difference between the conscious and the unconscious.
Right.
Now, usually when I hear unconscious, I think of Freud. I think of a dark basement in my brain full of repressed memories and weird dreams. But Al-Waily has a very different take, doesn't he?
He does. A completely different take. He uses the Arabic term al-ashur for the unconscious. But for Al-Waily, the unconscious isn't a dark basement where we hide our secrets. It's more like a library.
A library.
Or a historical record.
Yeah.
He argues that what we call unconscious instincts are actually just the accumulated conscious decisions of our ancestors.
Okay, let's unpack this because that's a heavy concept right out of the gate.
Okay.
He's saying that things we do automatically today, our instincts, were once, a long, long time ago, a conscious decision.
Precisely. And to understand this, you don't even have to think about evolution yet. Just think about your own life. Think about learning to drive a car.
Oh, God, I remember that. White knuckles on the steering wheel, sensory overload.
Right. When you first start, you are hyper-conscious.
Oh.
You are painfully aware of everything. Hands at 10 and 2, check the rear view mirror, check the side mirror. Okay, the light is red, ease off the gas, press the brake.
Every single micro movement requires intense focus. It requires what Al-Waily would call will and perception.
It's exhausting, isn't it? You get out of the car after 20 minutes and you feel like you need a nap.
Totally.
Exactly. But fast forward 20 years. What is it like now?
Now, I drive home from work, and sometimes I pull into the driveway and realize I don't remember the drive at all. I was thinking about dinner or this deep dive or anything else. My body
Yeah.
it just did it.
That is the transition. That's the
Yeah.
key. The conscious action has become unconscious habit. The knowledge moved from the front of your mind to the back.
So it's been automated.
It's been automated. Al-Waili applies this exact logic to the entire history of life. He suggests that the instincts of a species are just the driving habits learned by the ancestors and passed down physically.
So when a baby cries for milk, or when I pull my hand away from a hot stove without thinking, that's not just random wiring. That's my great-great-great-grandparent yelling at me from the past.
In a way, yes. It is a frozen thought or conserved decision.
Yeah.
Al-Waili argues that the unconscious is simply the storage of past consciousness. It's a record of what worked.
That makes the unconscious feel so much less mysterious and more functional.
It becomes a tool.
It's just an automation of survival. We figured this out a million years ago. Don't waste brain power on it now.
That's exactly right. And that leads us directly to his theory on emotions. If instincts are just old lessons, what are emotions? Al-Waili breaks them down into a really simple binary system. It's almost like computer code, 1 or 0.
This part fascinated me. He divides all human emotion, everything from appreciating the Mona Lisa to the pain of a stubbed toe, into just 2 categories.
The will to accept and the will to reject.
Life versus death.
That's the fundamental binary.
It sounds so simple, almost too simple, but when you start applying it, it fits surprisingly well.
It does. He categorizes all positive emotions, pleasure, beauty, love, appetite, as manifestations of the will to accept. These are the biological green lights.
Go toward this.
Yes. When you find a landscape beautiful or a meal delicious, that isn't just an aesthetic opinion for him. That is your biology, your very atoms saying, this sustains life, I accept this, I want more of this.
So beauty isn't in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is in the survival needs of the beholder's entire lineage.
Correct. And the flip side, of course, is the negative emotions, pain, hate, fear, disgust.
The red lights.
This is the will to reject. These are the warnings. This threatens my existence. This leads to non-existence. I must push it away.
Al-Waili is pretty adamant that this isn't abstract. We feel beauty in a lush green forest because our ancestors found food and water and safety there. We find a barren desert frightening for the opposite reason.
It's a pragmatic theory of aesthetics. But here's where it gets a little tricky, as you said. He doesn't just apply this to us humans. He goes all the way down the chain of being.
Right. He brings up a specific example involving a moth, and he's referencing the German zoologist Ernst Haeckel.
Ah, yes, a Haeckel critique. This is a crucial moment in the manuscript because it shows who Al-Waili is arguing against. It shows the intellectual battle he's fighting.
Right. So Ernst Haeckel, he was a big deal in the 19th century.
Huge. He was a champion of Darwin, but he was also a strict materialist. For him, everything was mechanics and chemistry.
And he described a phenomenon called phototaxis, which is just the tendency of organisms like moths to move toward light.
A very common biological observation.
And the standard explanation, the one I learned in high school biology, is that it's mechanical. Light hits the moth's eye, a chemical switch flips, wings start to beat, the moth flies. It's basically a little robot.
Just a machine made of meat.
Yeah.
Haeckel viewed this as a chemical inevitability. The moth doesn't want to go to the light any more than a rock wants to roll downhill.
Gravity pulls a rock, chemistry pulls the moth, no thinking involved, no agency.
But Al-Waili,
Mm-hmm.
he hates this idea.
He seems to find it offensive.
He completely rejects it. He says, no, this isn't just mechanics.
Yeah.
This is the earliest, most primitive form of love.
Okay, stop. I have to play a skeptic here. Love. A moth loves a light bulb. That feels like we're drifting away from philosophy into, I don't know, poetry. He's anthropomorphizing a bug, isn't he?
That's the immediate reaction, yes.
Oh.
And it's a fair one. But let's look at his definition of love. He isn't talking about writing sonnets or buying flowers.
Okay.
He's talking about the will to accept.
Break that down for me in this context.
Al-Waili argues that you cannot have the movement without the desire to move. He says the moth perceives the light. It has a sensor.
Okay, perception.
It then interprets that light as a benefit. Perhaps it's mistaking it for the moon, which acts as a navigational aid, or maybe an open space, which means safety.
So it makes a judgment call.
A judgment call, exactly. And based on that perception, it exercises its will. It desires the light. It accepts the light.
It wants the light.
Exactly. And conversely, it fears the dark. It rejects the dark. So when the moth flies toward the flame,
And burns up. A pretty bad outcome for an act of love.
Al-Waili would say that is a tragedy of misperception. The moth is exercising a primitive form of will based on a mistaken belief that the flame is beneficial.
So the will was there, but the data was bad.
The data was bad. But the key point, and this is where he fights Hegel, is that there is a will. It's not just a chemical domino effect. The moth is an agent making a choice, even if it's a fatal one.
So he's saying that even the simplest mistake requires a mind to make it.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to put it.
A rock doesn't make a mistake when it rolls down a hill. It just rolls. But a moth can make a mistake, which implies it's thinking, or at least processing information in some way.
Precisely. It implies a goal and a miscalculation in how to achieve that goal. And this sets the stage for the next section of the manuscript. Because if a moth has will, and if a moth has perception, then we have to ask, how far back does this go?
What is the minimum requirement for life?
Exactly. Al-Waili talks about the problem of the first organism.
This is a logical puzzle he sets up. I loved this part because it feels like a trap he's setting for the materialists, for the Heckles of the world.
It absolutely is a trap. Imagine the very first, simplest living thing in the primordial soup, a single cell, or maybe something even simpler. The author argues that this creature cannot survive by accident.
Right, because if it doesn't know what to eat, it starves. If it doesn't know to run away from danger, it gets crushed or eaten or dissolved.
Exactly. So Al-Waili rejects the idea that a mind can evolve after the body. He says that if the first organism didn't have a mind to start with, it would have died immediately.
You can't evolve if you're dead on day one.
You can't. Therefore, the mind, or at least the basic tools of survival, must have been there from the very first moment of life.
And he breaks these tools down into what he calls the 4 faculties. This is like the essential toolkit of life.
The operating system.
Yeah, the OS. Every living thing, from a bacteria to a bacteria scientist, has to have these 4 things. And I want to go through them slowly because the way they connect is really, really smart.
They are the non-negotiables of existence in his view.
Okay, so number 1, will, Alirada. We've talked about this with the moth, but give me the strict definition again.
The will is the power to initiate movement. But Al-Waili makes a beautiful distinction here, an analogy he uses. He compares a feather in the wind to a bird.
Right, I remember this.
Both are moving through the air. From a distance, it's just 2 objects in motion.
But their motivation is totally different.
Completely. The feather moves mechanically. It has no choice. The wind pushes it. It is passive. The bird moves where it wants to go.
It has an internal engine.
That difference, that internal engine of preference, is will. The power to accept or reject motion based on an internal desire.
Okay, so I'm a single cell. I have will. I have an engine. But that's not enough, is it? If I'm just moving randomly, I'm just thrashing around in the soup.
Exactly. Will without guidance is blind. It's just chaos. To want something, you must first be able to sense it.
So you need input.
You need input. So number 2 is perception. Alidrak.
The input mechanism, the sensor.
The sensor. You have to be able to distinguish me from not me. You have to be able to sense the object in the environment. Is it food? Is it a threat? Is it just water?
But seeing it isn't enough, and this is the part that really clicked for me, the next step. Let's say I have that first cell again. I perceive a glowing red dot.
Okay.
I use my will to move toward it. I touch it. It burns me. It causes damage.
Pain. A powerful negative signal. The will to reject kicks in.
Right. So I recoil. But then, 5 minutes later, I see the glowing red dot again. If I don't have faculty number 3, what happens?
You touch it again, and you get burned again, and you keep doing that until you are destroyed.
So perception is useless without.
Conservation, or memory, al-hafiza.
Conservation is such an interesting word for memory. It sounds like a term from physics.
It fits his physics background perfectly.
Yeah.
He means conserving the data, storing the information, the ability to store the image of the object and the experience associated with it.
The data packet. Glowing red dot equals pain.
Precisely. If the organism cannot conserve the memory that fire equals pain, it is doomed to repeat the mistake. Memory is the library of survival data.
So we have the engine, will, the camera, perception, and the hard drive, memory. But there's one piece left, the processor, the bridge between the past and the present.
Number 4, inference, el-istintaj.
The thinking part.
Inference is the processor, yes. It compares the current perception, what I see now, with the conserved memory, what I learned before, to direct the will, what I should do next. Al-Waili claims this is the spark of intelligence.
So it's the part that says, hey, I see a glowing red dot. I remember last time that meant pain. Therefore, I will move away.
That's the logical chain. And he uses the example of a cat and a dog here to show how this works even on an instinctual level. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so imagine a kitten that has been raised entirely indoors. It has never seen a dog. It has no personal lived experience with dogs.
So his personal memory drive is empty on the subject of dog.
Right. One day, a large dog walks into the room. What does the kitten do? It doesn't go up and sniff it curiously.
No, it does the opposite.
It hisses, it arches its back, it fluffs up its tail, and it bolts under the sofa.
Now, a behaviorist would just say instinct, a pre-programmed response. But Al-Waeli says this is a rapid active inference.
How so? Where's the data coming from if the kitten has no personal memory?
From the unconscious. The kitten perceives the shape of the dog. It instantly accesses the conserved memories of its ancestors, stored in its genes, in its very being.
The library.
The library. It compares the shape of this dog to those genetic memories of danger. And it infers, this thing matches the pattern of a threat, therefore, I must reject.
So it's doing math, it's doing data analysis just incredibly quickly.
Lightning-fast data analysis. It reframes instinct, not as a magical reflex, but as rapid thinking based on inherited data. The ancestors already did the slow, conscious learning. The kitten just runs the program.
And the most critical part of Al-Waeli's argument here, the thing that makes it a trap for the materialists, is the interdependency of these four faculties.
Yes, you cannot have one without the others. They are a package deal.
Will needs perception to have a direction.
Perception is useless without memory to make sense of the data. You'd just be a camera with no film.
And inference needs all three to make a decision.
They must have appeared simultaneously. You can't evolve memory 1,000,000 years after you evolve will. You'd be long dead by then.
Which brings us back to that problem, the problem of the first organism. If you need all four faculties to survive even for a minute, and they can't evolve one by one, where did they come from?
This is the cliffhanger. This is the big question he poses. He argues they couldn't have risen from dead matter. Dead matter doesn't have will. You can mix chemicals all day long in a lab, but they don't start wanting things.
And to prove this, he references a specific recipe for life. This part felt very pointed. He talks about scientists trying to create life by mixing exact ratios. I think the manuscript mentions something like 714 parts carbon.
Yes, 714 parts carbon, 1,120 parts hydrogen, 179 parts nitrogen, plus some sulfur and iron. He's referencing the known chemical composition of protoplasm.
It sounds like he's baking a cake. The cake of life.
He's making a very serious point about materialism. He's saying, look, science knows the ingredients. If you take a dead cell and you analyze it in the lab, you find these exact ratios.
So logic would follow.
Logic follows. If I put these ingredients in a beaker and shake it up, maybe add a little electricity, I should get a living cell.
But you don't. You just get a wet chemical mess, a primordial soup that stays soup.
You get dead soup. Al-Waeli asks the killer question. What is missing? The carbon is there. The hydrogen is there. The structure can be there. But the behavior is missing. The will isn't there.
You can't mix chemicals to create desire or inference.
Exactly. And since we know matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, a fundamental rule of physics, and we know mind exists because we are experiencing it, then mind must be inherent in the ingredients themselves.
So if the mind didn't come from the combination of the chemicals and it didn't evolve later, it must have been there in the atoms to begin with.
And this is the aha moment. This is where Al-Waeli drops his central, most radical theory. He zooms past the animal, past the cell, down to the atom itself.
And this is where he proposes that the fundamental particle of the universe,
The photon.
possesses these four mental faculties.
The photon theory. This is the heavy stuff. He's saying light itself is conscious.
He calls it the principal photon, right? Al-photon al-Ayusi.
Yes. He argues that an atom isn't just a mechanical system of forces holding electrons in place. That's the high school model. He describes the atom as a society or a state.
I love this analogy. It makes physics feel like politics. So in this atomic society, who is in charge? Who's the king?
The principal photon. This describes a central entity within the atom that acts as the leader or the mind.
So it's in the nucleus.
He seems to imply that, yes, it directs the electrons, which he calls secondary photons or subjects, in their orbits. Al-Waeli argues that the distinct structure of an atom, the way it holds itself together and doesn't just fly apart, is an act of will by this principal photon.
So it's the CEO of the atom making executive decisions.
Or the king of the atomic kingdom. Without this mental leadership, the atom would scatter. The electrons would just fly off into chaos. The fact that an atom maintains its identity, that a gold atom stays a gold atom, that it conserves its structure against the entropy of the universe.
That's proof to Al-Waili that there is a will holding it all together.
Yes, an act of continuous creation.
And this scales up, right? This is a fractal theory. It's not just for atoms.
Completely fractal. It's the same pattern at every level of complexity. So you have a society of photons making an atom ruled by a principal photon. Then you have a society of atoms making a cell.
And that cell must also have a leader.
Al-Waili argues there is a principal photon in the nucleus of the cell that rules that society of atoms. It directs their functions, tells them when to divide, what proteins to build.
And then a society of cells makes me.
A human being.
Exactly, the human.
Yeah.
Al-Waili argues that what you call you, yourself, your ego, the voice you're hearing in your head right now, is actually the supreme principal photon.
It is the leader of the leaders, the king of kings. It rules the central atom in the central cell of your brain.
Wait, I need to stop you there because this is genuinely mind-bending. I am physically located in a specific photon in my brain. Like if you could shrink down, you could point to a particle and say, there he is.
According to this manuscript, yes. You are a single physical particle of light that has ascended to the rank of emperor over the trillions of cells in your body. You receive reports from your subjects, the sensory nerves sending signals up the spinal cord, and you issue commands through the motor nerves. But you, the thing that feels and decides and worries about taxes, are that single point of consciousness.
That is wild, but also strangely consistent with his logic. If consciousness can't come from nowhere, it has to be somewhere. And if it's not a ghost, it has to be physical.
It has to be physical. It solves the hard problem by saying everything is a little bit conscious, but we are just a very, very organized collection of it.
A well-run empire of consciousness.
Exactly. It's a form of panpsychism, the idea that mind is a fundamental feature of the universe, but with a strict hierarchy. Not all consciousness is created equal.
But if I am just a photon, and my body is just a temporary society of atoms that I'm governing, what happens when the society collapses? What happens when I die?
This is where the theory tackles the concept of the soul, Alu. And for Al-Waili, the soul and the principal photon are the exact same thing.
So the soul isn't a ghost. It's not spooky ectoplasm. It's a particle of light.
It is a physical object,
Okay.
a fundamental particle, but a special one. Because physics, even conventional high school physics, tells us something very, very important about energy.
The first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed.
It can only change form. Exactly. So when the body dies, the society breaks down. The administration collapses. The atoms and cells disperse back into the earth. The empire falls.
But the emperor, the principal photon.
It is pure energy. It cannot be destroyed. It simply leaves. It is released.
Immortality.
A physics-based immortality. Al-Waili argues that this principal photon leaves the body, but it retains its conservation faculty. Remember, the photon has memory inherent to its nature.
So it carries the records of its life?
Its personality, its memories, its experiences, its wisdom, its mistakes, all of it is stored within the photon itself.
It's like a black box flight recorder. The plane might crash and break into a million pieces, but the little orange box with all the data survives.
That's a perfect analogy. The you that flies away at the end carries the flight logs of its entire journey.
And this has huge implications for his view on evolution.
Huge. This leads to his reevaluation of Darwinian evolution. He respects the idea of evolution. He sees the clear progression from simple to complex in the fossil record. But he flips the driver. He says species don't evolve by random accidents or lucky mutations.
Right, because random accidents don't create will or inference. A random accident is just a mistake. It's not a strategy.
Exactly. He argues that evolution is driven by the principal photons aspiring to higher states of being. The photon wants to interact with the world more effectively. It has a will to power, a will to experience.
So over eons, it learns to build better bodies, better vehicles.
Yes. It gathers atoms to build a simple cell. Then it learns, through trial and error over millions of years, how to build a cluster of cells. Then a fish, then a reptile, then a mammal.
It's like a pilot upgrading their plane. This little prop plane is too slow and can't fly very high. I'm going to learn how to build a jet.
That's it exactly. The first organism wasn't a chemical sludge that got lucky and was struck by lightning. In his view, it was a photon that used its will to gather atoms and build a vehicle for itself.
And as that photon gains experience, as its memory faculty fills up with millions of years of data about survival, It builds better and better vehicles.
It learns. The universe learns.
So we aren't the result of a genetic lottery. We are the result of an ancient, conscious effort by light to build a body that can talk and think and compose music and do podcasts.
It changes everything about how we view the universe. It's not a cold, dead, empty place where life is a bizarre fluke. It's a universe teeming with will and purpose. Every atom is a little drama of leadership and cooperation.
It really creates a universe that feels alive. It's not a machine, it's a community.
A community of light. And this has profound implications for how we understand reality itself. Which brings us to the next big section in the manuscript, on epistemology, how we know what we know.
Because if everything is made of conscious light, what is reality? What's actually out there versus what's in my head?
Right. Al-Waily draws a very hard line between objective reality and subjective reality. And he says we get them mixed up all the time.
He strips objective reality down to the bare minimum. He says the only things that truly exist outside of our minds are
Motion and light. That's it.
just photons moving around. That's the entire universe, objectively speaking.
Everything else. Sweetness, bitterness, the color blue, the sound of a guitar, the feeling of heat, the feeling of cold is subjective. It is a creation of the mind. An interpretation.
The manuscript has a great bit about sugar. He says sweetness isn't in the sugar. And my brain rebelled against that for a second because, come on, sugar is sweet.
But is it? If you put sugar in a glass of water, does the water feel sweet? Does the glass?
No, the water just dissolves it. It's a chemical reaction.
Right. The sweetness is our emotional reaction to that chemical contact. It is the will to accept in our supreme principle photon, triggering a sensation of pleasure because that chemical compound historically meant energy and survival.
So we create the sweetness. It happens in us, not in the sugar.
Exactly. And heat.
I'm guessing it's the same principle.
It's just the motion of atoms. When atoms move fast and bombard our skin, we interpret that rapid motion as the sensation of heat. When they slow down and we lose energy to them, we interpret it as cold.
We are constantly translating the language of photons, which is just motion, into the language of emotions, which is feeling.
That's a perfect summary. It's like we are living in a simulation, but one created by our own principal photon for the purpose of navigating the world. We paint the world with colors and tastes and sounds that don't actually exist out there in the objective reality of moving light.
But he doesn't go all the way into nothing is real, does he?
No, in a way, yes, we create the world of sensory experience inside our heads. But Al-Waily is careful not to drift into total relativism. He ends this section with a defense of pure logic. He calls them mental axioms.
This is the anchor. Because if everything sensory is subjective, then nothing is true. But he says logic is real.
Yes, things like 2 + 2 = 4, or the whole is greater than the part. He argues these aren't just human inventions or cultural agreements. These are absolute truths derived from the nature of reality itself.
So even the photons obey these laws.
Even the photons obey these laws. If a photon has the faculty of inference, it operates on logic. So while our senses might fool us, like the moth thinking the flame is beneficial when it's not, our logic, our ability to do math and reason, is our connection to the absolute truth of the universe.
It's a grounding anchor in a very, very trippy theory. Logic is real. Light is real. Motion is real. Everything else is a story we tell ourselves about those things.
The story that has kept our particular society of atoms alive for millions of years.
So let's zoom out. We've gone from the survival instincts of a moth to the specific chemical recipe of protoplasm, and then all the way down to a universe made of conscious light organized into societies. It's a lot to take in.
It is a massive intellectual edifice.
But looking at this manuscript, even with the scribbles and the corrections, you really feel the coherence of it. It's not just random thoughts, it's a complete system. He has an answer for everything from love to physics.
It is a system. And what strikes me reading it now is how it weirdly mirrors some very modern debates in, say, quantum physics.
Oh.
Well, we have the observer effect, the famous idea that the act of looking at a particle changes its behavior. It's a huge puzzle. But Al-Waily would say, of course it does. You are a highly organized, conscious photon interacting with another, simpler conscious photon. It's a social interaction.
You're confusing it. You're making the electron shy by staring at it.
Right, perhaps.
Oh.
But it removes the deadness from physics. It reframes the whole thing. Al-Waily's universe is not a machine. It is a conversation.
And it recontextualizes our own lives in a profound way. if Al-Waili's right, we aren't just bodies that have souls. We are ancient, immortal entities of light.
That have built these complex biological spaceships to explore the material universe.
And we are the captains of those ships, the supreme principal photons.
Yeah.
And our crew, our cells, our atoms, our organs, are all relying on us to steer them toward acceptance and away from rejection, to steer them toward life and flourishing.
That puts a lot of responsibility on us, on our choices. But it also gives a lot of hope, I think. Death isn't the end. It's just stepping out of the vehicle.
And taking your flight logs with you for the next journey.
Right. And it implies that the universe is filling up with experience. If photons are immortal, and they keep their memories, as he suggests, that the universe today is fundamentally smarter than it was a billion years ago.
It's full of experienced light, veterans of existence.
Exactly. It's not a static system. It's a learning system.
That is the thought I want to leave our listener with today. We started by looking at a sunbeam coming through the window.
Just a simple, everyday thing.
Al-Waili suggests that since photons are immortal and keep their memories, every beam of light is potentially a stream of conscious entities. Just imagine that. The sun coming through your window right now might not just be warmth and energy, it might be a crowd.
A parade of ancient travelers.
Each with its own story, its own conserved memory of its journey across space.
It certainly changes the way you look at a sunrise. It's not just a physical event anymore. It's an arrival.
An arrival of consciousness. Thank you so much for walking us through this incredible manuscript, General Philosophy by Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily. It's been a real deep dive into a completely different way of seeing the world.
My pleasure. It's always good to remind ourselves that the current scientific worldview is just one way of connecting the dots. Sometimes you need a handwritten manuscript from the past to open up a new future.
Absolutely. To our listener, keep looking at the light, and maybe it's looking back at you. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.